I'm really interested in encouraging debate on the practical here and now challenges of money and markets. Early experiences in the peace, women's, and environmental movements made me really aware that power in capitalist societies revolves around having or not having money. I turned a master's thesis on Mexico's foreign public debt into a doctoral thesis on Karl Marx's concept of money. At the time, I lived in a commune whose one purse principle was under debate. Decades later, I'm still exploring how we might abolish money so that real values, that's social and ecological values, dominate all our decision-making. I argue that a just and sustainable degrowth future is impossible if money is the operating principle of production and exchange. Degrowth's challenge to growth essentially questions the capitalist drive, which is money making more money. Growth is about monetary values and quantity. Degrowth is about qualities, about social, political, and ecological values. It's precisely monetary calculations and values expressed as prices, credit, and debt that detract from and contort social and ecological values. Prefigurative commoning practitioners confirm that monetary relations limit transformative practices and collective liberation. The key challenges of the 21st century worldwide, meeting the essential needs of people and Earth, requires real equality for people and addressing all ecological unsustainabilities. Capitalism establishes and regenerates such challenges. Money serves production for trade, for capital, with dissolving and violent impacts on non-monetary societies, whether they're indigenous or other forms of creating and sharing collective provisioning based on need. Although capital reduces to money making more money, and money defines capitalist practices like a chicken and egg, only a minority of leftists regard money as a key problem. Most post-capitalists only go so far as demanding the reduction of the scope of money and markets, even though Plato referred to money used for profit or gain millennia before capitalism existed. They implied that money and markets are questionable. So only a non-monetary post-capitalism can focus on meeting people's and Earth's essential needs and allow the necessary healing of people and Earth from exploitation. No money effectively abolishes capitalist practices and capitalists, which would be a significant strategic action for post-capitalist leftists. The degrowth movement encourages direct democracy with essential needs produced and justly distributed. Degrowth envisages decentralized and relocalized economies with one planet footprints. These goals are relatively easy to achieve by grassroots action once we disable imperialist and expansionist limitations of capitalist, that is, monetary economies. Humans have lived long and diversely, either without money, trade, and markets, or where money and markets are marginal to independent modes of provisioning. So let's envisage a non-monetary community mode of provisioning characterized by authenticity, active participation, conflict resolution, sharing, caring, and commoning. Think through real values lenses, where all worldly matter is alive and full of infinite and incomparable qualities. Here, nature, of which humanity is a part, is a wealth of trees, animals, fungi, soil, water, air, and so on. we still need measures for calculating proportions, indicators and amounts for collective provisioning, such as 103 oranges or 67 kilogram of nails, in order to plan and decide on optimum options for satisfying needs. Say we discuss cutting down certain trees, depriving the living world, including humanity, of opportunities for shelter, trade, medicines, nesting spaces, fruit for different animals to eat, and pruned branches for fuel. Still, dead wood might provide timber for building, ash for fertilizer and fuel. In short, we envisage all of the tree's living and dead qualities. A real values perspective aims to encompass the human and more than human worth of all things, avoiding exploitation of Earth and promoting its regenerative capacities, holistically respecting and revering all life, as is often shown by Indigenous ways of provisioning. A real values perspective offers building blocks for assessing, planning, and monitoring within a community mode of production. I'm not suggesting islands of self-sufficient, inward-looking communities, but rather interconnected communities producing and exchanging together on the universal principles of meeting people's and Earth's needs. So, how about sitting back and imagining the globe dotted with innumerable settlements, environmentally appropriate in terms of their sizes and material and cultural practices of humanity? Settlements with porous and overlapping boundaries rationalised along bioregional lines. Community provisioning relying on real value analyses, evolving dynamic, flexible, and environmentally sensitive practices. A bioregion, sub-bioregions, and sub-sub-bioregions have boundaries that are framed by dynamic ecosystems, say by a watershed. Thousands of people might coexist in such bioregional units, but community-based units, I'd call them ecotats, typically comprise of 100 to 500 people, reliant on the landscapes that they inhabit. The community, which is as self-provisioning as possible, decides their modest collective needs and ways to satisfy them based on the potential and limits of local Earth and their preferences in terms of productive techniques. Initially, orders spring from each household's decisions around their needs, later cross-checked and re-evaluated by broader groups and working parties. Planning includes precautionary provisioning, storage and distribution associated with unexpected natural events or social developments. Communities live at one with their surrounding environments, akin to best practice Indigenous peoples' relationships to country. There are opportunities for mobility and cross-communication between ecotats. Members of various communities move between and constantly communicate with one another on joint concerns. The combined social product fulfills pre-orders. Instead of chaotic production for trade, we have efficient provisioning for demand. The internal life of the ecotat is collectively organised via horizontalist structures, such as regular assemblies, meetings, and activities of working groups within which individuals have maximum autonomy and respect the same for others. Relations are characterised by open and transparent skills and knowledge sharing, rotating positions, monitoring, and accountability. Residents contribute to their ecotat in multiple ways, in the expectation that their basic needs are met primarily locally. Secondarily, needs are met in the most ecologically and socially efficient ways via other ecotats, and vice versa. Productive collaborations and exchanges within the wider world of ecotats run on universal principles that the needs of everyone on Earth must be optimally satisfied. Engagements and negotiations start with various parties expressing their needs and surpluses. Decisions are based on ecotats' joint evaluation of feasibility within real value assessments. Infrastructure for health, transport, and makers, such as hospital, trains, studios, and craft works, operate via collaboration between neighbouring communities practicing commoning. All cooperating communities take a real value approach, working in and benefiting from such activities through arrangements that are formalised in what I call compacts, which are distinct from inflexible monetary contracts. Qualitatively and quantitatively, the ecotat and its wider relations are characterised by cultural diversity and richness, replete with creativity and innovation. Caring and conviviality are generic approaches to all activities, whether they be digging the soil, sewing clothes, making other things, minding, learning, tending, experimenting, healing, or transporting. Entertainment is integral with everyday living, no longer exclusive due to being commodified. If capitalist insecurities, exploitation, and alienation end, feelings of anxiety, fear, anger, and depression exist in all societies. But emotional openness is encouraged, and skills for managing conflict and addressing challenges are shared. There is a collective aspiration to acknowledge and resolve difficulties and to support others to celebrate and dream. Degrowth concepts and practices of convivial technology within commoning characterise the selection and application of techniques of provisioning. Each community can decide which techniques to use. Attributes of convivial technologies include social and ecological durability. Their creation and use involve environmental efficiencies and social preferences. They are created and work in ways that are relatively easy to understand, maintain, and repair. The globe of commoning communities is interconnected via radically shared and modestly used internet, with open source knowledge and skills sharing, with modestly used renewable energy sources, durable, simple, and standardized hardware, and energy efficient, low embodied energy infrastructure. Ecological footprints are minimized, taking account of embodied energy and materials and their operating costs. As internet enables information sharing and services for co-governing, collective provisioning, and cultural work exchanges, the internet is a primary conduit of intercommunity organising for co-managing shared ecosystem and infrastructural features. Ecotat members participate in decision-making and are active in a range of working parties covering a range of discrete yet interconnecting ecological and social concerns, requiring a lot of intercommunication. Lakes and river systems, deserts, plateaus, ranges, forests, and other vegetative ecosystems require just and ecologically appropriate management across multiple different clusters of ecotats. Community representatives are accountable and replaced by community decision. Networks decentralise and separate management into distinctive spheres at the largest scales involving the global atmosphere, oceans, and land masses. A sophisticated division of material and political powers replace hierarchical and centralized state governance, just as real values substitute for monetary values, both delivering much more nuanced and appropriate social and ecological outcomes. Of course, we're left with all the problems with making such a transformation. How on earth can we resist monetary organization and transactions while establishing and maintaining money-free commoning, co-governance, and prefiguration based on collective sufficiency and real social and ecological values and needs? My book, Beyond Money, a Post-Capitalist Strategy, has some ideas on how we might transform ourselves.